Hi, I'm John, and say what you will about Dragon Ball Daima, but I think we can universally agree that Majin Kuu is one of the best characters to come out of the series. So what if I took this bootleg Majin Buu figure and turned him into Majin Kuu? Only one way to find out. But before I do, make sure you like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe. Now, let's go melt some bubblegum. After letting the figure sit in boiled water for a while, and a lot of elbow grease, I was able to take it apart. Let's start by adding to the torso. I'm using epoxy sculpt for all the sculpting on this figure. As opposed to Majin Buu, Majin Kuu has no holes on his body, so I filled them all in. You can find this and everything I'm using in today's video in the description below. Next, I rolled some noodly bits and applied them around his shoulders and his neck to make his chest piece. For this guy, I'm using as little clay as possible and trying to blend and smooth everything out as best as I can, so I don't have to sand as much later on. Next, I sculpted in the shoulder blade piece in the back, again using as little clay as possible to keep him trim and not bulky. For his abdomen, the figure came with this really weird belly button indent, so I filled it in and sculpted in the straight line right down the middle. Next up, for his head, I started by cutting off his appendage. Yeah! I shaved out the remaining excess. And then cut off his ear nubbins. I also shaved off his mouth because later on, we're going to be adding some juicy lips. I rolled up some noodly bits to sculpt on his head split and blended them in. Once that was smooth, I added another couple noodly bits to his cheeks. I cut up some more tiny noodly bits to sculpt in the holes in his head. I would have done it earlier but didn't realize he had holes in his head until after his head completely hardened, so this was the next best option. Next, I used another noodly bit to add on some luscious lips as a smirk. To finish up the head, the last thing I sculpted in was his ears, which was definitely the hardest part of the whole thing. I was able to do the first one relatively well, but I had a really tough time getting the two ears to match. After a good amount of effort, I said to myself, I give up, and moved on to his hands. The original Majin Buu figure came with mitten hands, but luckily the interior of the hands are pretty much hidden, so I was able to cheat my way through here by sculpting on just the visible sections of the fingers. Then I added in the knuckles using some little balls of epoxy sculpt. The last little thing to do was filling in the gaps on his wristbands and ankle bands using some Tamiya basic putty. And after some off-screen sanding and priming, it's time to paint. I added a small bit of light gray primer on his face to make sure the yellow I used on the rest of his head wouldn't discolor the final purple color. Next, I painted his head using a mix of yellow green and light green. I painted in his eyeballs white and then painted the outlines of his eyes black, painting them in now so I can clean up the lines later when painting in the rest of his face with purple. I dotted in the location of his iris, and off screen, I painted in the rest of his eyes. I painted in his face using a light purple that ended up being definitely too dark, and then fixed it with an even lighter shade of purple. Then I painted in his lips using a mix of sunset orange and flat flesh. I painted in the outlines of his eyes around the outlines of his eyes with some flat blue. I painted his arms, neck, and hands in the same light green color as I did with the head. Then I painted his torso with a lime green and light green mixture. And then did the same for his wristbands and ankle bands. I painted in his pants using some bone white, since Majin Kuu's pants tend to be a little bit more of an off-white color. Next up, I repainted the emblem with some gold, and the rest of his belt and the letter M in black. Lastly, I painted in his boots with a mix of cork brown and flat brown. Then moving straight into highlights, I dry brushed them with some cork brown by itself. Then I dry brushed the pants with some ivory. His light green sections were dry brushed with some yellow green. And his torso, armbands, and leg bands were highlighted using some lime green. Because I didn't have any green panel liners, I painted in some little accents in the head divot and along his eyebrows with some light green and lime green to give it a more anime look. And finally, painted in his nails with some black. As a protective layer and to give the figure a more matte finish, I then applied a Krylon matte clear coat to the entire thing. All that was left to do was to put him back together. And he's done. Here's how he looked like before. And here's the final result. As usual, making a new custom presents new challenges. This time sculpting new body parts that I haven't done before, and trying to get both sides to mirror each other is something I haven't quite mastered yet. And I'm working with colors I haven't worked with before, so that was fun, and I'm really happy to add these to my repertoire for future green folks down the line. Let me know what you think in the comments. Of course, special thanks to all my members, with special thanks to my newest members, Sneaky Sly Cooper, Gabsu XDXDXD, and returning J Uriel Unique 89 and Jay Thompson. You can join my YouTube membership for $2 a month, where you can get live updates of whatever project I'm working on, and some member-only polls that can help influence certain content on the channel. But most importantly, you'll be helping me out directly. You can also find links to everything I use in the video in the description. Check out my other projects and figure reviews on my channel, and if you liked my work, subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment, and hit the notification bell so you know when my next video is going to drop. Thanks for watching. See you next time.